I am really excited about my new book, Every Day of Friday, How to Be Happier 7 Days a Week. It's a guide about finding joy every single day, not just on Fridays or special occasions, but making happiness a part of life all the time. Happiness isn't just about luck or big achievements, it is about learning small habits and shifts in thinking that make ordinary days feel extraordinary. Everyone can apply these ideas, no matter what stage of life they are in. It's about looking at life with a lighter heart, finding gratitude in small moments, and building a sense of purpose that fuels joy naturally. When people hear the name Joel Osteen, many immediately think of prosperity, big churches, and televised sermons that inspire millions. But the story of Joel Osteen is far more complex than it seems on the surface. At one point, Joel Osteen's empire was valued at $110 million in 2020. That number alone makes people assume he is untouchable, that success is permanent and unshakable. But life can be unpredictable, even for the wealthy and famous. By 2025, insiders reported that Joel had lost around $60 million in just 5 years. That is more than half of his fortune gone in a relatively short period. The signs of this shift were visible to those who paid attention. His massive mansion, which once symbolized his success and status, went up for sale. His private jet, a symbol of luxury and convenience for the elite, quietly disappeared. Employees at Lakewood Church, which had been the centerpiece of his family's life for decades, started getting laid off quietly, without public announcements. But even more surprising than these material losses was the fact that the way Joel earned money had shifted dramatically. Unlike before, when he was primarily known for preaching and sharing spiritual guidance, his current sources of income are something most of his congregation would never expect. The man who taught millions about prosperity, hope, and faith found himself needing to pivot in ways that were private and often misunderstood. Joel Osteen was born on March 5, 1963, in Houston, Texas. He was the youngest of 6 children, growing up in a house filled with sermons, prayers, and the presence of cameras documenting almost everything for the church. His father, John Osteen, had once been a Southern Baptist preacher, but he eventually left the denomination to start something entirely new on his own. In 1959, before Joel was even born, John Osteen converted an old feed store on the outskirts of Houston into the first Lakewood Church building. It was humble, small, and unassuming, yet on its very first day, 90 people attended the service. Those 90 people marked the beginning of what would eventually become one of the largest churches in America. John's style of ministry was different from what many people were used to. He introduced charismatic preaching, faith healing, and speaking in tongues, practices that were not typical in Baptist traditions. These elements brought a new energy to the congregation and drew more people in. Joel, growing up, watched all of this from the front row. He wasn't just a preacher's kid tagging along to church, he absorbed the energy, the rhythm, and the excitement of faith that seemed to flow through every service. That rhythm, however, would be profoundly tested when Joel was still a young man. In 1981, when Joel was 18, his family faced a crisis that would leave a lasting mark on him. His mother, Dodie Osteen, was diagnosed with metastatic liver cancer, which doctors said was too advanced to treat. They sent her home with no options, and the family was left in shock. The atmosphere in their house changed dramatically as John gathered family members and close friends to turn their living room into a prayer room. On December 11, 1981, Dodie, despite her weakened condition, declared that her faith would carry her through. Against all expectations, she recovered. Doctors were unable to explain how her healing happened, and she went on to live a full life, even writing a book called Healed of Cancer, which became a testimony for the congregation. Joel helped duplicate tapes of her story, witnessing firsthand the profound effect a single moment of faith could have on a family and community. This event would shape Joel's understanding of hope, miracles, and the power of spoken words in a way that influenced him for the rest of his life. Even though his childhood was steeped in faith, Joel's early life wasn't all about sermons and miracles. He attended a normal high school and had a relatively typical teenage experience. He enjoyed sports, hanging out with friends, and casual hobbies. Unlike what many assumed about the son of a preacher, Joel did not enjoy public speaking or feel drawn to preaching. He was more interested in cameras, storytelling, and the quiet control of editing and production work. While the church grew from a small congregation to over 1,000 members by the 1970s, Joel spent his time learning to operate television equipment and supporting his father's vision in ways that were behind the scenes rather than on the pulpit. He played a crucial role in helping his father launch a weekly television broadcast for the church. This broadcast gradually expanded, eventually reaching audiences in over 100 countries. It wasn't just a side project for Joel, he was shaping the church's identity on screen and creating a platform that extended far beyond the physical walls of Lakewood Church. Despite the expectations of others, Joel remained hesitant about preaching. He did not feel called, not yet. His father's story loomed in the background. John Osteen, born in 1927, had been a Baptist pastor, but a spiritual awakening led him to break away and start Lakewood Church. Beginning in a converted feed store, the church quickly grew, reaching over 1,000 members by 1960. John's television broadcasts also picked up momentum, attracting people with a mix of healing messages and prosperity teachings. He spoke about faith in a way that suggested it could transform lives, heal illness, and lift people out of financial hardship. This approach resonated with many but came with enormous pressure. Joel observed his father working tirelessly to balance leadership responsibilities with family obligations, often exhausted after sermons and meetings. The home itself became an extension of the church, where even casual dinner conversations often included ministry debates or discussions about sermons and spiritual strategy. There were also parts of their family history that were less visible to the public. Before marrying Dodie, John had been married once before to Emma Jean Schaefer. That marriage ended in divorce in the early 1950s, and it was a topic rarely discussed. The church did not highlight it, and it remained largely private. Joel grew up understanding that public perception often hid complex truths. As a child and teenager, Joel was not naturally drawn to preaching or public ministry. He was fascinated by media and storytelling. Operating cameras and learning television production gave him a sense of control and creativity. He found joy in shaping messages from behind the scenes and saw the power of technology in spreading spiritual messages beyond the local congregation. This interest would become a defining feature of his career, even as the expectations for him to preach loomed. By the time he entered adulthood, Joel had a foundation in both faith and media production. He knew how to connect with audiences visually and emotionally and understood the power of narrative in shaping belief. His mother's miraculous healing and the dynamic growth of the church were constant reminders that faith could move mountains, but Joel's own path would not follow the conventional trajectory. He would eventually step into the spotlight, but it would be on his own terms, blending charisma, media skills, and spiritual messaging in a way that captured a global audience. The rise of Joel Osteen's public ministry was gradual. He did not take over immediately after his father's era but prepared quietly, honing his skills, understanding his audience, and learning the craft of communication. His approach differed from his father's in subtle ways. He focused more on hope, inspiration, and personal empowerment rather than the traditional emphasis on healing and miracles alone. This resonated with people who sought practical guidance, encouragement, and optimism in their daily lives. By the time he officially assumed leadership at Lakewood Church, Joel had not only inherited a congregation but also a multimedia platform capable of reaching millions. He leveraged television, books, and speaking engagements to expand the church's influence. His personal style, optimistic, approachable, and charismatic, helped transform Lakewood into one of the most recognized churches in the world. Yet, despite public perceptions of wealth and success, Joel's journey was marked by challenges, financial fluctuations, and personal growth. While many people see only the glamorous side of his life, the mega mansion, private jets, and millions in earnings, the reality was far more nuanced. By 2025, when reports of significant financial loss emerged, it became clear that even prominent figures face vulnerability and change. These experiences reflect broader lessons about resilience, adaptation, and the importance of finding multiple avenues for stability. Joel's pivot to unexpected income sources demonstrates his willingness to evolve and think creatively in times of uncertainty. Joel Osteen's story is ultimately a mix of faith, family, media, and personal determination. From witnessing his mother's miraculous recovery to learning the art of television production, Joel combines spiritual insight with practical skills to build a unique ministry. His life illustrates how childhood experiences, personal interests, and family dynamics can converge to shape a person's trajectory in ways that are both surprising and inspiring. Even as financial and personal challenges emerge, the principles he learned from early experiences, hope, perseverance, and belief in possibility, continue to guide him. His journey teaches that life is rarely linear. Success can ebb and flow, and public perception often misses the complexities behind it. What matters most is the ability to adapt, remain grounded in core values, and continue striving for impact and meaning. Joel Osteen's combination of faith, media savvy, and resilience offers lessons not only for spiritual leaders but for anyone navigating the unpredictable nature of life, career, and personal growth. From a small feed store in Houston to a global platform reaching millions, Joel's life story blends miracles, media, and human experience. His early fascination with cameras, his mother's healing, and his father's pioneering vision all contributed to a path that is uniquely his own. Despite setbacks and unexpected shifts in fortune, his story underscores the enduring power of faith, hope, and the willingness to embrace change. Through it all, Joel Osteen exemplifies how combining preparation, belief, and adaptability can create a lasting legacy that inspires others, regardless of the obstacles that arise. Even today, Joel continues to evolve. His current projects, personal income strategies, and media presence show a man who understands the value of both spiritual guidance and practical innovation. He demonstrates that true leadership is not just about maintaining status or wealth but about using one's talents and experiences to impact lives positively. The lessons he carries from his family, his early challenges, and his unique path in media continue to influence his ministry, showing that hope and resilience can coexist with the realities of change and impermanence. In the 1950s, having a divorce was seen as a scandal, especially for a preacher. It was something to hide, something that could damage reputation and credibility. John Osteen, Joel's father, had experienced this early in his life, and while it was never spoken of publicly, the silence surrounding it influenced the way the family operated. Joel grew up in a home full of faith, prayers, and sermons, but there were quiet lessons that were equally important. He learned early that what people show to the world is often different from what they hide. That understanding shaped him profoundly. It taught him to carry himself with calm, optimism, and a constant smile, even when life was challenging or messy behind the scenes. The Osteen family's finances were modest during Joel's early years. They didn't have luxury, and the house reflected their simple beginnings. Joel watched his father write book after book, over 45 in total. Most were self-published, and initially, sales were modest. But over time, those books helped spread John Osteen's message far beyond the walls of Lakewood Church, reaching people who might never attend a service in Houston. Joel, still a teenager, was already learning the ropes of managing a growing media presence. By the time he was 19, he was effectively running the television side of the church. He had no theological degree, had never preached a sermon, but he had an innate understanding of how to capture an audience visually. He knew how to frame shots, edit clips, plan sermon breaks, and even keep track of his father's wardrobe on yellow legal pads to avoid repetition. He was building something important, not from the pulpit, but from behind the cameras, from the soundboard, from editing rooms where his influence shaped how the church appeared to the world. Joel graduated from high school in 1981 and enrolled at Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, choosing a major in radio and television communications rather than theology. He wasn't interested in the traditional route of seminary or preaching classes. The strict religious environment didn't fit him. He wanted hands-on learning, not endless chapel lectures or textbook debates about faith. After a year, he left the university and returned to Houston in 1982, throwing himself fully into building Lakewood's media ministry. His father still hoped Joel would preach, but Joel resisted. His passion lay in creating professional broadcasts that could bring the church's message to audiences far beyond the local congregation. At first, the resources were limited. The budget was tight, the equipment was second-hand, and Joel learned everything through trial and error. The congregation only saw polished broadcasts, but behind the scenes, Joel was meticulously adjusting lights, fine-tuning camera angles, editing tapes, and ensuring his father's sermons were clear and compelling. By 1984, the weekly attendance at Lakewood jumped to 6,600, and the church's television presence began to grow dramatically. The mix of prosperity-focused preaching and modern media techniques created something new and powerful. Despite all this, Joel remained behind the scenes, letting his father shine as the face of the ministry. During this time, Joel's personal life also began to stabilize. He started dating Victoria, who became his confidant. She understood that Joel didn't want to preach and was committed to staying in the background. They married in 1987, supporting each other as Joel continued to build the technical foundation of Lakewood's media empire. Meanwhile, Joel's siblings pursued different paths. Paul became a medical missionary in Africa, and Lisa collaborated with Joel on writing projects. Their family dinners often involved deep discussions about faith, leadership, and the challenges of living up to expectations. Joel usually stayed quiet, focused on his work, which involved connecting people to the church's message through cameras, cables, and editing boards rather than through sermons. By the fall of 1982, Joel had already begun laying the groundwork for a television ministry. With no formal training or blueprint, he started with a rented camera, a borrowed room, and a head full of determination. The first broadcast aired on a local cable access station in Houston, watched by only a few hundred households. There were no lights, no live audience, and no expectations, but Joel took every detail seriously. He carefully framed shots, adjusted audio, and timed every break to ensure the broadcast felt professional. By 1983, he had become ordained through Lakewood, not for preaching but to hold a formal place within the church hierarchy, allowing him to continue his work without contradiction. Over the next 17 years, Joel's dedication never wavered. He edited and directed every broadcast, clocking hundreds of hours in the studio. Saturdays were spent at his father's house, preparing for Sunday's show, selecting camera angles, adjusting lighting, and even planning wardrobe choices. By 1987, Lakewood's broadcast was being aired in 100 countries, reaching millions of viewers weekly. While the audience saw a polished service, Joel's painstaking work behind the scenes was the foundation that made the global expansion possible. He had turned a small local church into a media powerhouse, all without stepping onto a stage as the main preacher. Behind the cameras, Joel also noticed another pressing issue: finances. By the mid-1980s, Lakewood was struggling to keep up with expenses. Donations were inconsistent, and the church had grown faster than the money could support. John Osteen had always led with heart and faith but lacked a strong focus on the business side of ministry. Joel stepped in quietly, devising innovative ways to stabilize the church financially. Without telling his father, he approached local businesses, grocery stores, furniture stores, even funeral homes, and pitched sponsorship deals. These businesses would receive mentions and thanks during broadcasts in exchange for financial support. Within 2 years, Joel had tripled the ministry's income. What had once been just over $100,000 in 1985 jumped past $300,000 by 1987. The additional funds allowed Joel to upgrade equipment, expand the reach of broadcasts, and create a more professional presentation. Joel's most daring move came in 1987, when he convinced Lakewood's board to invest in KTBU TV 55, an independent television station in Houston. This investment was risky. It wasn't just paying for airtime, it was building a station from the ground up, including control rooms, cameras, and technical equipment. The total cost exceeded $2 million, a massive risk for a church still establishing its financial footing. But the strategy worked. By 1990, KTBU was broadcasting Lakewood services into over 10 million homes nationwide. It was controversial among some church elders, but it proved effective beyond anyone's expectations. By the late 1990s, the station was syndicating the church's broadcasts across the country, cementing Lakewood as a media powerhouse. Joel's workdays were long, often 12 hours or more. He was editor, director, lighting technician, and quality controller, ensuring every angle, shadow, and sound met high standards. He demanded precision and excellence, creating broadcasts that looked like they were produced by professional media companies rather than a church. While most of the congregation and even church leadership focused on preaching and services, Joel was quietly constructing the technical backbone of a ministry that would reach millions. Every detail mattered to him, from lighting to timing to ensuring that sermons flowed seamlessly on camera. In the mid-1980s, Joel had firmly established his role. He wasn't the preacher, he was the builder of the church's media presence. This behind-the-scenes work required patience, precision, and vision. Joel understood the long-term value of his efforts, even when they weren't publicly recognized. His dedication allowed Lakewood to thrive financially and expand globally, creating a legacy that combined faith with innovation. Through his work, Joel proved that leadership is not always about visibility. Sometimes, it is about quietly creating structures that enable others to shine while ensuring that the organization as a whole grows stronger and more effective. Joel Osteen's journey during these years exemplifies the combination of faith, technical skill, and strategic thinking. While his father focused on the spiritual message and public face of the church, Joel built the infrastructure that allowed those messages to reach millions. He learned early that impact can happen behind the scenes, that dedication and attention to detail are just as important as charisma or public recognition. This understanding shaped his approach to leadership and ministry, teaching him that influence does not always require stepping into the spotlight. To Joel, Lakewood's broadcasts had to feel as exciting as Monday Night Football or the Oscars. He demanded perfection. Cameramen had to be flawless, sound engineers couldn't miss a beat, and every detail had to shine. He still refused to preach, leaving that to his father, preferring to work in the shadows, among the wires, in the editing bay. But everything changed in January 1999. Just days after giving his first hesitant sermon, Joel's world shattered. His father, John Osteen, died suddenly of a heart attack on January 23. He was 77. Joel had only preached once, 6 days earlier, and now there was no one else to lead the church. No plan, no guidance, no fallback. Thousands of members arrived that day in mourning, looking for stability, for a guiding hand, for someone to keep the church together. Joel didn't rush into the role. He first offered the position to his siblings, but none accepted. Hesitant, unsure, he was finally pushed forward by his wife, Victoria. On October 3, 1999, Joel was officially named senior pastor of Lakewood Church. What he inherited wasn't just a pulpit, it was a $90 million per year institution with international programs, aging infrastructure, and doubt lurking in every corner. Within months, donations dropped by 20%. The church began to strain under financial pressure, and Joel had to pour in his own money just to keep it afloat. There were no applause lines, no early celebrations, only pressure, fear, and the heavy weight of responsibility. He knew changes had to be made immediately. Joel shortened sermons to 20 minutes and introduced contemporary music, transforming Sunday services into more upbeat, engaging experiences while keeping the message of hope central. Within a year, weekly attendance jumped from 6,000 to over 10,000. The growth surprised longtime members. Joel modernized the experience, streamlined it, made it lighter and more accessible, yet still deeply spiritual. At the same time, he continued running the media operation, filming, directing, and broadcasting. In October 1999, the Joel Osteen TV show officially launched. Within months, 2 million people were tuning in. His style was simple, a clean presentation, a friendly smile, and messages about rising above challenges. There were no threats or condemnations, only encouragement. Not everyone supported Joel's methods. Some longtime staff who had stood by John Osteen's traditional ways resisted the changes. By mid-1999, the church faced a full-blown financial crisis. The 20% drop in donations strained the operations, and Joel had to sell personal assets to keep the church running. A $90 million budget could not survive on hope alone. He cut spending, made tough decisions, ran emergency fundraising campaigns, and relied on every media strategy he had. Slowly, the church stabilized. The same relentless focus he had applied in the editing room now guided every decision in the office. By 2005, weekly attendance had reached 15,000. The old building could no longer accommodate the crowd, prompting a bold decision. Lakewood pursued the Compact Center, a former sports arena once home to the Houston Rockets. After negotiations, they signed a 30-year lease, paying $18.8 million up front. Renovating the space into a worship center cost nearly $100 million. Indoor waterfalls, luxurious seating, and a 16,500-seat sanctuary transformed the arena into a state-of-the-art church. By July 2005, Lakewood had become the largest church in the United States, setting a new standard for what a megachurch could be. The cost was enormous. They took a $100 million loan from Bank of America after other banks had declined. Nearly 20 years later, on December 31, 2023, Joel announced that the loan was fully paid off. Years of faithful tithing, with the congregation giving 10% of their income consistently, made it possible. Even while paying off debt, Lakewood continued its outreach without scaling back. Joel emphasized that this achievement was not about pressure or guilt, but faith, and it worked. This milestone marked a historic moment in megachurch fundraising. Joel also prioritized diversity. He hired a multi-ethnic staff, launched Spanish-language services, and actively reached out to Houston's Latino community. By 2010, Lakewood was no longer just a local church, it broadcast to 200 million homes across 6 continents. Services in Spanish, English, and other languages spread the same message of hope globally. They leveraged every available platform, SiriusXM, podcasts, online streaming, and international events. Church was no longer just a Sunday experience, it had become a worldwide brand. But growth came with risks. In 2003, an accountant embezzled $200,000, exploiting the church's rapidly expanding finances. By then, annual budgets exceeded $90 million. The incident prompted tighter financial oversight, but it also left a mark, showing how quickly expansion could outpace control. Despite that, Joel and Victoria chose not to take a salary from the church, living instead off book royalties, a move they cited when addressing critics who accused them of profiting from religion. Still, questions remained. In 2017, Lakewood collected $83 million in donations, of which $1.2 million went to missions and outreach. The rest kept the operations running, including media production, staff, and events. Meanwhile, Joel and Victoria lived in a $12 million riverfront mansion, paying nearly $250,000 in property taxes annually, sparking debate about wealth and ministry. Joel's publishing career skyrocketed in 2004 with Your Best Life Now, which sold over 8 million copies in its first year. By 2014, royalties exceeded $55 million. The book cemented his status as a global author. Subsequent books, including Become a Better You, brought in millions more, and partnerships with major publishers expanded his reach. These books, combined with televised sermons, podcasts, and live events, created a cycle. Media promoted books, books drew audiences, audiences reinforced media reach. By 2008, 10 million Americans watched his sermons weekly, and events like the Night of Hope at Yankee Stadium generated significant revenue, turning church gatherings into large-scale productions. Joel also ventured into audiobooks. In 2013, Breakout became a hit on Audible, earning thousands of 5-star reviews and reaching millions. Donations increased 15% following its release. The calm, encouraging tone of his voice helped connect listeners emotionally and spiritually. However, in 2015, controversy arose when a former aide filed a lawsuit claiming ghostwriters had authored much of his work. Critics questioned authenticity, which caused temporary skepticism among followers. Despite the debate, Joel's brand remained strong, anchored in the message of hope and personal growth. In personal life, Joel and Victoria maintained high visibility. They moved into a $10.5 million mansion in Houston's River Oaks in 2004, a Mediterranean-style estate with 17,000 square feet, multiple elevators, a pool, guest house, and 6 bedrooms. While some criticized the opulence, Joel described it as a blessing and used it to symbolize prosperity aligned with faith. The family continued to grow, with Jonathan and Alexandra Osteen contributing to church media and music programs. Critics called it nepotism, but Lakewood embraced a family-centered operation focused on faith, family, and the future. Additional properties, like the 2011 $2.9 million vacation home in California, sparked further debate. Some saw it as disconnected from congregants struggling financially, while others viewed it as proof that blessings followed faith. Joel maintained that prosperity was part of his teaching, living righteously and giving generously led to reward. By 2015, his net worth was estimated at $50 million, reflecting success but also heightened scrutiny. In crises, Joel faced challenges directly. During Hurricane Harvey in 2017, initial delays in opening the church drew criticism. Joel responded by donating $1 million of his own money and mobilizing volunteers to rebuild homes and deliver supplies. In 2020, Lakewood accepted a $4.4 million PPP loan for staff during the pandemic, repaying it in 2021. Meanwhile, the IRS audited media-related income, investigating $89 million in personal earnings dating back to 2007. Although legal concerns arose, no wrongdoing was found, and Joel maintained his message of generosity and faith. Tragedy struck on February 11, 2024, when an armed attack occurred during a Spanish-language service. 2 people were critically injured. Joel addressed the congregation with messages of forgiveness and faith, while the church invested $500,000 in upgraded security. Around the same time, rumors claimed Joel had lost $60 million during the pandemic. Financial analysis proved the claim false. His net worth had grown to $110 million by 2025, fueled by book sales, media rights, and live events. At 62, Joel Osteen continued to lead Lakewood, which now hosted over 50,000 people weekly, up from just 6,000 in 1999. His broadcasts reached 200 million homes in over 100 countries. In 2024, Lakewood fully repaid the $100 million renovation loan for its arena sanctuary, a milestone reflecting 20 years of careful financial management and consistent faith-based giving. Joel's work had transformed Lakewood from a local church into a global spiritual brand, combining ministry, media, and family into a powerful, influential institution that continues to reach millions worldwide.